Hey guys, welcome back to Hellstormwargaming. I'm currently knee deep and in the middle of event prep when you're watching this, round one of my first tournament that I'm running, well, the first large tournament I'm running in nearly 2 years now because of the pandemic is going ahead. I haven't really had a chance to sit down and record many proper videos recently. I will be live tomorrow for coffee time and we'll be doing live from the event and doing a catch up there. And I'm currently testing the 3D printer, which is coming out in a video next week. However, today Games Workshop have allowed me to start talking about these two codexes which did arrive this week, and I have had a bit of chance to sit down with this one in particular and kind of tell you a little bit more about it. Now, we are planning on doing a live stream battle report next week with both of these facing off against each other, but there'll be more details about that coming very soon, so make sure you like and subscribe. So you'll get a notification. But today I'm going to be doing a lazy review, and by review I mean I'm going to be telling you all about the things happening in this book today. Now, this isn't going to be super in-depth, it's going to be very much a lazy man reads a book, because I wanted to make sure there was some content coming out on the channel this weekend, and I pretty much figured that this would be quite interesting to some people. So I'm going to be going through all of the things that happen in this book and telling you my thoughts on it. But I will say before I get into it, it's really cool. And it's really cool because, one, there's been lots of really nice healthy little buffs across the book, and it seems like a really healthy update, more like the Orc Codex to the last Orc Codex rather than AdMech to the new AdMech. So without further ado, let me sit and read a book to you while putting on some pretty pictures in front of it. Now, this book goes through a whole bunch of lore about the Thousand Suns, but we're going to be focusing on the new rules today because it has updated chapter approved rules as well as detachment abilities, as well as army-wide rules. It also has Crusade, which we won't be going over today, but it also has new data sheets and lots of changes, some point values and some war gear, etc. And what's quite interesting, in the first page it mentions D33, which is because there's actually 9 powers per table rather than 6, which is the first. So they've got a D33 that tells you what's that for. It also goes over combat patrol in the first page. Now, this page usually tells you what's in the combat patrol box. So it says the combat patrol is the smallest size game, and then the picture is created from the contents of the Thousand Suns combat patrol box set, which is basically what's in Hexfire but another 10 Zangors. So it's the Infernal Master, 5 Terminators, and 20 Zangor, which looks like a quite nice box. Anyway, we start the Codex with the chapter approved rules, where we talk about the new Secondaries, which we have 4 of. There is Warpcraft, funnily enough, with it being a psychic army. There is Mutate Landscape, which is a psychic action at Warp Charge 4. One psychic unit from your army can attempt to perform this action in your psychic phase if it is within range of an objective marker that has not yet been mutated by your army. Every time you do cast this, the warp charge value increases by 1. So it goes off on 4, then 5, then 6. And you score 3 points every time you do that, which seems like quite a nice objective. There's then No Mercy, No Respite. We've got Wrath of Magnus. You can only set this objective if your opponent has 1 or more psychic units in their army. Score 3 victory points in the battle round if more enemy models than friendly models were destroyed this battle round as a result of psychic powers. So, kill stuff with psychic, get points. There's also Shadow Operations, Burn Empires. If you select these objectives, then Thousand Suns Infantry can do the following action. Basically, a Thousand Suns Infantry unit from your army can perform this action at the start of the end of your movement phase. 1 or more even, so even more than 1 unit can do it at once. Each unit that starts performing an action must be in range of a different objective marker that is not within your deployment zone and has not been burned. And it has all the other stipulations as normal. But you score 4 victory points every time you do this. But it's only objectives that aren't within any deployment zone. There's a Purge the Enemy, there's a Sorceress Prowess, which is an endgame objective which you score 5 victory points at the end of the battle for each enemy psychic character unit that was destroyed in the psychic phase by a Thousand Suns unit from your army, and 3 points at every other psychic unit that was destroyed in the psychic phase by a Thousand Suns psychic army. So that one pretty much feels like go and use this against Grey Knights, but it's actually quite hard to do since it's all in the psychic phase. So the secondaries. Next up we have Detachment Abilities. Now, a lot of this looks very familiar to the Death Guard section. A Thousand Suns detachment is one that includes only Thousand Suns models, excluding models with online keyword. They gain the Mere Servants and Jealous Tyrant abilities. Now, Mere Servants is essentially you can't include more Thousand Suns cultists in your army, then you do Rubrics and Scarab Cult Terminators, which again is very much the same as Death Guard. But it also says you cannot include more Bray units than you do Rubric Marines and Scarab Cult Terminators. So this is for your Zangors and your Enlightened, etc. But it's not cumulative together, it's cumulatively separately. So you can have up to, if you have 2 Rubrics, you can have up to 2 Cultists and up to 2 Bray units. You also get Jealous Tyrant, which is essentially you can only have 1 Demon Prince unit in each 1,000 Suns detachment, but there's no limit on like Lords or Sorcerers and stuff like that. 1,000 Suns units in a 1,000 Suns detachment gain the Brotherhood of Sorcerers ability, which is add 1 to the psychic test taken for this unit, and all Arcana Astartes, all Zangor units have a 5+ invulnerable save. So everyone gets +1 basically, which is really good when you start thinking about Magnus, who still has +2, so he naturally gets +3 to cast on while he's on full wounds, which is great. And then all Rubrics and Scarab Cults and Bray units in 1,000 Suns detachments gain objectives secured. So even your Terminators have objectives secured now, which is actually really good in my opinion, as well as Zangors and other types of those units. There's then Legion Command, which is essentially like upgrading different characters, like you've seen with like Chapter Masters and stuff, but this is like, there's quite a few to do here. Essentially, you can use each one of these once. They all have a points cost and they can only go on certain models. But there's a big table of what you can and can't upgrade, but there's quite a lot to choose from. So for 25 points, you can give an Exalted Sorcerer Rihati, which is basically you can cast an extra power. You can give an Exalted Sorcerer a Paradigm of Change for 15 points to add 1 to the wounds and attack characteristics. For 35 points, you can upgrade an Exalted Sorcerer to be given an extra Sorceress Arcana relic. It must be a different relic, and this relic must be the one that they can have, but can be done even this model already has a relic. Now, I presume you have to still spend the CP for the strat to unlock an extra relic, but it just means one guy can take 2 for 35 points. If you have a Sorcerer or Sorcerer in Terminator armor, you can upgrade them 15 points to give them a Loyal Thrall. This model can attempt to perform a psychic action in its psychic phase instead of attempting to manifest 1 psychic power rather than any. Which I think the wording of this is basically, if you have a Sorcerer and it can cast 2 powers, you can cast a psychic power and a psychic action rather than just a psychic action. You then have, again, Sorcerer or Sorcerer in Terminator armor. For 15 points, you can give it Witch Warrior. Each time this model manifests Smite or a Witchfire power that inflicts mortal wounds on a dice roll, you can re-roll that dice to determine the number of mortal wounds. And then finally, for Sorcerers and Sorcerers in Terminator armor, for 10 points, you can turn it to a Battle Psyker to give it Weapon Skill 2 and give it 5 attacks, which is kind of nice. There's 3 more upgrades for Aspiring Sorcerers or Scarab Cult Sorcerers, so basically Rubrics or Terminator squads. The first one is 20 points. It can perform an action and still shoot without failing. The second one is 10 points. It's Protege. This model knows 1 additional psychic power from any discipline it has access to. And then for 15 points in your command phase, another model in this model's unit regains all lost wounds, which is kind of nice on those like 3 wound Terminators you've got now. And then it goes on to the cults of the Legion. So basically there's 9 cults like there were in Psychic Awakening. For each cult, you get a psychic power, which every unit in your army knows, as long as they're all 1,000 Suns. And they get a unique Warlord Trait and a unique Sorceress Arcana, which is basically a relic. There's Cult of Mutation. As I said, there's 9 to go through, so we're going to have to be quick fire on this. They have Warp Reality, which is Warp Charge 6. And if manifested, select 1 terrain feature within 24 inches and visible to the Psyker. Then select 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of that terrain feature. Till start the next psychic phase, you half that move's characteristic and sub 1 from the advance and charge rolls, which is really cool. You have Touch of Vicissitude. Each time a melee attack is made by this Warlord, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any other damage. You then have the Relic, which is Exalted Mutation. You give 1 to +1 strength, toughness, and attacks to any sorcerer model. You then have Cult of Prophecy, in which you have Divine the Future as the power. It has a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, roll 1d6 and set it to one side. To start next psychic phase, you can use that dice roll to replace a single dice roll for a hit, wound, advanced charge, psychic test, deny the witch test, or morale test for a Cult of Prophecy unit from your army. They have Warlord trait Guided by the Whispers. Once per turn when this Warlord is selected as target of a charge, before making the charge roll and after firing any Overwatch, it can make a normal move of up to 6. That's pretty boss. In your command phase, for the Sorceress Arcana, you've got the Oracule Brazier. You can select one Prophecy Core or Prophecy Character unit within 6 inches. Until start next command phase, each time that unit is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, and 1 damage roll when you're resolving that unit's attacks. You've then got Cult of Time. You have Time Flux, which is Warp Charge 6. Select a friendly Cult of Time unit within 6 inches of the Psyker. You can return 1 destroyed model from that unit to the battlefield with all of its wounds remaining. There's a Warlord trait, Immaterial Echo. In your Psychic phase, if this Warlord manifests a Psychic power with a Psychic test of 9+, this Warlord can attempt 1 additional Psychic power that phase. When attempting to manifest that additional Psychic power, if the Psychic test is passed, it cannot be denied. Only 1 Psychic power can be manifested as a result of this Warlord trait, which is pretty boss actually. That's really nice, but you do need to roll over 9, but you get +1, so it's actually only over 8 to do that. And then you have the Hourglass of Manat, which is basically when this bearer dies, you set it back up again at the end of the phase with D3 wounds remaining. You then have Cult of Scheming. So you have Seeded Strategy, which is warp charge value of 7. You choose a friendly Cult of Scheming core unit within 24 inches of the Psyker. It can fall back and shoot and recharge, even though he fell back that turn. You have the Grand Schemer Aura. Whilst units are within 3 inches of this Warlord with the Warlord trait, friendly Cult of Scheming units gain the Objective Secured ability. If they already have the Objective Secured ability, each one on that unit counts as 2. And then you have the Chakithil Theorem, the Arcana. Basically, if you choose once for battle in any phase, if the bearer's on the battlefield, you use the theorem. If it does, select 1000 Sun Stratagem until the end of the phase, or until after you've used that stratagem, whichever comes sooner. Interesting. Reduce the command point cost of that stratagem to 0. That's probably one of my That's my second favorite, I think, the Cult of Scheming, because of the Objective Secured ability and being able to fall back and shoot and recharge with like big blobs of like Scarab Cult Terminators. So Cult of Scheming is one to look out for, I think. You then got Cult of Magic, so you have Astral Blast, which has changed a little bit. It's warp charge value 6. If manifested, the closest enemy unit within 12 inches suffers D3 more wounds, and each other unit within 3 inches of that unit suffers 1. You have Devastating Sorcery. Once per Psychic phase, when you attempt to manifest either Smite or a Witchfire power from this Warlord, you can re-roll that Psychic test. So that used to be +1 damage on mortal wounds, but now it's slightly changed, and there's abilities you can do that with Cabal and stuff like that. And then there's Sorceress Arcana, which is Arcane Focus. If your army is a cabal of sorcerers, which it will be if it's pure 1000 Suns, the bearer has the following ability. At the start of the Psychic phase, select 1 friendly Cult of Magic Psyker unit within 6 inches of the bearer. Until the end of the phase, each time you would use a Cabilistic Ritual on this unit, it costs 1 fewer Cabal points. We're going to go over Cabal points pretty soon, but they're basically like a secondary currency you can use in the Psychic phase. If you've got loads of Psykers on the battlefield, you get loads of points and you use them for little buffs. And by little buffs, I mean really game-changing buffs. You then have Cult of Knowledge, which you have Empiric Trespass. It's warp charge value 6. Select 1 enemy unit within 24 inches of the Psyker. Until the start of the next Psychic phase, each time an attack is made against that unit by a model in a friendly Cult of Knowledge unit, reroll wounds of 1. The Warlord trait is you can reroll dice rolls of 1 when making Psychic tests for the Warlord. And then you have the Sorceress Arcana, which is a Warp Flame Pistol, which is Pistol D6, Strength 6, -3 and 1 damage, and it automatically hits. It's 12 inch. So just a better pistol. Not that great, to be honest. Then you have the Cult of Change, which is, this power is Dismanifestation. So you select a unit within 18, it's Warp Charge 6, you -1 to the leadership and attacks characteristics. The Warlord trait is Fickle Nature. You can reroll charge rolls made for this Warlord, and the Warlord can shoot and charge in a turn in which it fell back. And then you have Capricious Crest, which is once per battle round, when a Psychic test is taken within 18 inches of the bearer, you can change the result of that Psychic test as follows. If it is a friendly model, you can change dice rolls from 1 to 6, and if it's an enemy model, you can change the roll from a 6 to a 1. So essentially, like, really manipulate the Psychic phase and flip those dice in your favour, or well, actually, either way in your favour. either in your favour or against your opponent. Now you have Cult of Duplicity, which is probably my favourite just because of the manipulation it has. You have Sorceress Facade, or Facade, my apologies. It's war charge value 8. If manifested, select one friendly Cult of Duplicity infantry or Cult of Duplicity monster that is within 6 inches of this psyker. Remove that unit from the battlefield, then set it back up on any battlefield anywhere there's more than 9 away from any model. So pick up a Deep Strike really for warp charge 7 on the dice because you get +1. You have Master Misinformator. Master is Misinformator. At the start of the first battle round, before the first turn begins, select up to D3 Cult of Duplicity units, excluding vehicles from your army. Remove those units and this Warlord from the battlefield and set them up again following normal deployment rules. So basically, free Phantasm as a Warlord trait. And then you have the Perfidious Tome. They've got some weird words. In each of your command phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, you can read from the tome. If it does, roll 1d6. On a 1, your opponent gains 1 command point, but on a 4+, you gain 1 command point. Then you have Cult of Manipulation. You have Attempted Possession, which is Warp Charge 5. Select an enemy unit within 18. The unit takes 1 mortal wound. And starting your next psychic phase, each time a psychic test is taken for that unit, subtract 2 from the psychic test. That's pretty cool. You have the Beguiling Influence. Each time an attack is made against the Warlord, the hit, wound, and damage roll cannot be re-rolled. And then you have Sorthis Mirror, which is each time the bearer is selected to fight, instead of fighting, you can select one enemy infantry unit with a leadership characteristic of 9 or less. If you do the selected enemy model immediately makes close combat attacks against its own unit. Until it is resolved these attacks, it is treated as being a model from your army for all rules purposes. If, as a result of these attacks, the enemy model destroys its own unit, the bearer counts as destroy that unit for all rules purposes. So basically take over a guy and hit with him. So that is all the cults. You then have a whole bunch of new stratagems, some of them being renamed from old ones and some of them being brand new. You have Fated Mutation, which is 1 CP. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when 1,000 Suns Chaos Spawn unit from your army is selected to fight. Till the end of the phase, instead of rolling for that unit's mutated beyond reason ability, you can select the result. Until the end of the phase, each time you make a number of attacks, you can add 1 to the result. You've got Ensorcelled Infusion, which is 1 CP. Use this stratagem in the shooting phase when 1,000 Suns vehicle model from your army is within 6 inches of an Astartes, Arcana Astartes Psyche unit. Until the end of that phase, improve the AP characteristic of the ranged weapons that model is equipped with by 1. You then have Unwavering Phalanx, which is 1 or 3 CP. Use it in the opponent's shooting phase when a Rubric Marines or Scarab Occult Terminators unit from your army is selected as a target of an attack. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic to a minimum of 1. If that unit contains 5 or fewer models, it is 1 CP, otherwise it is 3. But -1 damage is really good, obviously because of all these dust is still there. So if it's only 1 damage, you get +1 save. You've got the Wrath of the Wronged, which is 2 CP. Use this stratagem in the shooting phase when an Arcana infantry unit from your army is selected to shoot, or in the fight phase when it's selected to fight. To the end of phase, each time model makes an attack, add 1 to the attack's wound roll. So that's basically the one that Chaos Space Marines use. Veterans are long well. You have Infernal Fusillade, which is 1 CP. Use this stratagem in the shooting phase when an Arcana infantry unit from your army is selected to shoot. Till the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit shoots a bolt weapon, make 1 additional attack with that weapon. For example, a model shooting the Inferno Combi Bolter at half range would make 5 attacks. So +1 bolter shots, which is really good. You have Inhuman Savagery, which is 2 CP. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when a Zangor unit from your army is selected to fight. You basically get to reroll hits. Vengeance for Prospero, 1 CP. Reroll hit and wounds against a Space Wolf unit in combat for a 1,000 Suns unit. The Great Sorcerer, 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your Psychic phase. Select 1,000 Suns Psychic from model from your army. You can attempt to manifest 1 additional Psychic power. Malignant Pact, which is 1 CP. You use this stratagem in your command phase when an Infernal Master from your model from your army is unsuccessful in making a pact. Select 1 friendly 1,000 Suns infantry or cavalry unit within 6 inches of this model. That unit suffers 1 mortal wound and the pact is successful. Which is kind of nice because there's one that's just like auto take. which is basically like +1 to wound with ranged weapons, or +1 strength with ranged weapons. So like pinging off a mortal wound onto a unit to get automatically +1 to +1 strength. And then using Infernal Fusillade for extra shots, so you like strength 5 with 5 shots each. You got Warped Regeneration. Use this in the Psychic phase after manifesting a Psychic power with a 1000 Suns unit if the unmodified Psychic test was 9 or more. If that unit contains a model that has only lost any wounds, that model is healed and regains up to D3 wounds. Otherwise, if any models in the unit have been destroyed, you can return one of those models with all of its wounds remaining. So that's kind of nice. Unholy Sorosus, or Sorosus, is 1 CP. Using the Psychic phase, select 1000 Suns Psychic from your army. Select 1 Psychic power from the discipline it has access to. That Psychic power replaces 1 Psychic power that unit knows. So basically swap a power for 1 CP. And one of those can be Smite. You can swap for something else, which is kind of nice. You've then got Biomechanical Mutation, which is basically used in any phase when a 1000 Suns vehicle will lose a wound. As a result of a mortal wound, you ignore mortal wounds on 5+ from that point forward. You have Metaphysical Focus for 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your Psychic phase. After attempting to perform a Psychic action from your army, that unit can then manifest 1 Psychic power this phase, which is really nice, really nice. Again, with the ability to upgrade a squad so they can perform an action, or like upgrading the character so you can perform a Psychic action and then cast a power. This just like gives you loads to do. You have Psychic Dominion. Use this stratagem in your opponent's Psychic phase when a 1000 Suns Psychic unit or army is selected to deny a Psychic power. So long as that unit is within 6 inches of another friendly 1000 Suns Psychic unit that could also attempt to deny that Psychic power, when taking that Deny the Witch test, roll 1 additional d6. So denying on 3d6 if you're within range of another unit, which is basically any unit that has a sorcerer in it. So you got Malevolent Machine Spirit, which is basically a unit with 1000 Suns Machine Spirit keyword acts at full profile. I'm pretty sure that's just a Land Raider. You got Masters of the Immaterium, which is 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your Psychic phase when a 1000 Suns unit would suffer perils of the warp. You do not suffer the perils of the warp. You got Sorcerer's Might, which you use in the fight phase. My apologies. Use Sorcerer's Might for 1 CP in the fight phase when a 1000 Suns Sorcerer or Exalted Sorcerer unit from your army that is equipped with a Force stave, excluding relics, is selected to fight. You basically give it +1 damage. It's D3 +1. You got High Acolytes, which is 1 CP, which you use before the battle when mustering your army. If your Warlord has a 1000 Suns keyword, select another Arcana Astartes character and give them a Warlord trait as well. You can use this twice in Strike Force. So basically buy a Warlord trait. You then have Sorceress Arcana, which is basically buy an extra relic. But then you have Aspiring Magister, which is used before the battle when you're mustering an army. Select 1000 Suns Aspiring Sorcerer or Scarab Occult Terminator model. Scarab Occult Sorcerer Terminator model from your army. You can give them a relic, which is kind of nice. Even though they're not a character, they can take the Coruscator, the Scalox Talon, the Incandeum, and the Stave of Abominus. Each relic must be unique and given to a different model. They can basically take a couple of the relics, and some of them are alright. You've then got Schemes of Change, which is 1 CP. You can only use this stratagem if your army only contains 1000 Suns detachment. Use this stratagem if you're playing a mission that requires you to select either secondary objectives or agendas. After both players have revealed one of those secondaries or agendas, you can then swap them. So you can basically swap one of your secondaries for 1 CP. I don't know how often they use that. It'll be kind of like that one in Dark Angels where it's like you can hide the Maelstrom cards. I can't really see it being used, but it's there. You then have Risen Rubrici for 2 CP. Used during deployment when setting up a Rubik's Marines unit from your army. You can set up anywhere on the battlefield that's more than 9 inches away. That's pretty much the same one. You got Webway Infiltration, which is basically for 2 CP you can set up 1, or for 3 CP you can set up 2000 Suns infantry keyword units, and they can deep strike at the end of your movement phase. Not bad. For 1 CP you've got Implacable Guardians, which is used to stratagem at the start of your opponent's shooting phase. Select an Arcana Astartes character, excluding Magnus the Red, to the end of the phase while that model is within 3 inches of any friendly Rubric or Scarab Occult Terminators. Enemy models cannot target that model with ranged weapons. So it basically gives the Rubrics or 1000 Suns Scarab Occult bodyguard keyword, which is nice. You got Coruscating Beam, which is 3 CP. It's like a really weird orbital bombardment. Using your command phase, if the Thousand Suns Warlord from your army is on the battlefield, select one point on the battlefield and place a marker on that point. At the start of your next command phase, place another marker on the battlefield that is within 9 inches of the center of that marker, and draw a line between the center of each of the markers. Roll 1d6 for each unit that line will pass over or through, adding 1 if the unit contains 11 or more models, and subtracting 1 if it's a character. On a 4+, that unit takes d3 more wounds. The markers are removed. You can only use this once. And you know what? They should have just right, you can use this never because it is terrible, and don't waste your CP on it. The fact that you have to wait a turn, you just like advance away from it, cool. You then have 1 CP for Vector Strike. Use this stratagem in your movement phase after making a normal move with this Thousand Suns Helldrake model from your army. Select one enemy unit this model moved across that is not a character with the wound characteristic of a 9 or less and roll 1d6. On a 2+, that unit takes d2 more wounds. If that unit can fly, it takes 3 wounds instead. You then have Inescapable Forewarning for 2 CP. Use this stratagem at the end of the reinforcement steps of your opponent's movement phase. If an enemy model was set up as reinforcements within 18 of an Astartes Psyche unit from your army, select one Arcana Astartes core unit from your army that is within 6 inches of that Arcana Astartes Psyche keyword unit and not within engagement range of any enemy units. That core unit can shoot as if it were the shooting phase, but it can only target that single enemy unit that was set up within 18 inches of the Psyche unit. Now this is a really interesting one because all core Psyche units, well, Scarab Occults are core, as are Rubrics. They're also Arcana Psyche units. So if you land within 18 inches, you land within Rubrics that are 18 inch. That's an Astartes Psyche unit that is technically within range of itself, because that's just how the rules work. You're within range of something if you are giving off the aura yourself. So you are also a core unit that's within 6 inches of the Psyche unit that's the same unit, which then you can then shoot. I don't know if that's intended. I don't know if it said it must be within range of an Astartes Psyche unit. Select one different Psyche unit that is not the same unit. You know? Kind of like the forewarning stratagem from Eldar, because it's a Farseer unit. So, but technically, rules as written, you can just, if you deep strike within 18 inches of Rubrics or Scarab Occults, they can be the Psyche and the core unit that then shoots, which I thought was fun. You then have Selfless Automata for 2 CP. Use this in the heroic intervention step of your opponent's charge phase. Select one enemy unit that's finished a charge move within the engagement range of an Astartes Arcana character, and one friendly Rubrics or Scarab Occult Terminator unit that is within 12 inches of that unit and not within engagement range of any enemy unit can perform a heroic intervention. When you do so, roll 2d6 instead of 3. And it must finish closest enemy model. Instead, at least one model from that unit must end within engagement range of the selected enemy unit, and no models from that unit can end that move within engagement range of any other enemy units. Otherwise, it does not move. So essentially, if an enemy charges near a character, another random unit can roll 2d6 and try and charge, but it can only charge that unit, it can't charge anyone else. That's essentially what that means. You got Empiric Reservoir for 1 CP. You can use the start of the Psychic phase, select one model from your eye within 6 inches of a Mutilated Vortex Beast. If that model generates Cabal points, generate D3 additional. You got Slow and Purposeful, using the movement phase when an Arcana infantry unit from your army makes a normal move. Till the start of your next turn, that unit is considered to have remained stationary. I've not really worked out where that comes into it, because the purpose of shooting, the Arcana infantry unit counter stationary anyway. But I thought it was interesting. Good strat. I'm sure there's probably like a secondary that you can do where you need to remain stationary and stuff like that, and that's just going to be like kind of nice to have that there. You got Etheric Saturation for 1 CP. Using your Psychic phase when a Psychic character model from your army is within 12 inches of a Mutalisk Vortex Beast and it is selected to manifest Psychic powers. Instead of manifesting one Psychic power with that model, it is healed and regains D3 lost wound. Each model can only be healed once per turn. You've then got Soul Reap for 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when 1,000 Suns unit from your army is selected to shoot. To the end of the phase, the Soul Reaper cannons model in that unit are equipped with gain the following ability. Each time an attack is made with this model, with this weapon against a unit with 11 or more, make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. And Soul Reaper cannons are 5 shots at strength 6 now. So if you shoot with 11 or more, you shoot 10 shots rather than 5. That's excellent. It's 1 CP. You're going to see it on a big fat unit of Scarab Occult, because they can take 2 in the unit of 10. I should say that Rubric Marines can now take 1 Soul Reaper cannon for every 5, but they can only take 1, so you can't run 2 in a unit of 10, but you can use 1 in a unit of 5. And my biggest gripe with 1,000 Suns with Rubrics was the fact that I couldn't take 1 Soul Reaper cannon in a unit of 9, but now I can take it in a unit of 5, I guess. You got Warp Flame Gargoyles. Use this at the start of fight phase. Select 1 vehicle model from your army, excluding Hellbrutes. Roll 1d6 for each other unit within engagement range of that model, subtracting 2 if it's a character or vehicle. On the fall pulse, you do d3 more wounds. You got Arcane Smokescreen, which is basically -1 to hit for a Smokescreen unit. And then you have Malefic Scroll. Use this strategy in your Psychic phase when 1,000 Suns Psychic unit from your army, excluding Magnus, manifests a Smite power. That manifestation inflicts 3 more wounds instead of d3 or d6. So 1 CP to do automatically 3 wounds. Again, everyone's getting +1 to cast, so casting Smite on 4 isn't hard. And then automatically doing 3 wounds is really good. Now you have Warlord Traits. Now, there are 6 Warlord Traits to choose from. There are a couple missing. There isn't +1 invulnerable save anymore that Ahriman used to auto take. But there are 6 Warlord Traits. Ahriman takes 1 and Magnus takes 3. So with one of them being pretty good is the Undying Form, which is -1 damage. Magnus has to be your Warlord, so Magnus is -1 damage now, which is pretty sweet. You got Arrogance of Aeons, which is number 1, which is one that Magnus has to take. You can reroll Deny the Witch test taken with this Warlord. And if your army is a Cabal of Sorcerers, this Warlord can benefit from 1 additional Cabilistic Ritual in each of your Psychic phase. We're going on to Cabilistic Rituals pretty soon, but essentially each Psychic can only use once per turn. The Warlord can use 2. Magnus has this Warlord trait. You have Seeker After Shadows, which is each time this Warlord attempts to perform a Psychic action, roll 1 additional d6 and discard 1 d6 when taking that test. Also, if your army is a Cabal of Sorcerers, each time you generate Cabal points with this Warlord on the battlefield, you generate an additional Cabal point, which is kind of nice. You have Undying Form, as I've already mentioned, it's -1 damage. Magnus has that one as well. You have Lord of Forbidden Knowledge, which Magnus also has. Your Warlord knows 1 additional Psychic power. If your Warlord is Magnus the Red, it knows all the Psychic powers from the disciplines it has access to. So Magnus used to know a lot of powers. Magnus now knows 18 powers. He knows Smite and both tables in this book, which are both 9 powers each. So there's 19 powers. He gets +3 to cast and knows 19 powers. It's just stupid. You have Otherworldly Presence, which is a nerfed Ahriman Warlord trait. Once per battle, before making a save for this Warlord, Empiric entities can grant him visions of fate. If they do, until the end of the turn, this Warlord has a 3+ invulnerable save. But essentially, you have a 1 turn, Warlord trait, invulnerable save for a Warlord trait rather than just standard 3+. So this is Ahriman's auto Warlord trait. You then have Aetherstride, which is +3 move for the Warlord, and the Warlord is eligible to charge during the turn it fell back. And when he makes a normal move, a charge move, advance, or falls back, it moves as if he had fly. Which is pretty nice, actually. That's a really nice little Warlord trait. But yeah, I think a lot of them are pretty good. Lord of Forbidden Law is not bad. If it's Magnus the Red, it's like really good. Arrogance of Aeons, rerolling Deny the Witch test is pretty good. Seeker After Shadows is nice, getting those extra card points as well, and being able to do pretty much guarantee Psychic tests for Psychic actions and you roll additional d6. But yeah, so out of all those, they're really good. But again, Ahriman's is the once per game for 1 turn, 3+ invuln. And Magnus the Red has reroll Deny the Witch. He can use 2 Cabilistic Rituals. He's got -1 damage, and he knows every power. Every power! You then have Infernal Pacts. So these are for the new Infernal Master from the new box set. Basically, these are very much like he's basically a psychic chaplain. He can cast powers. He can also do an Infernal Pact. There's 6 to choose from. He has Bladed Maelstrom, where you basically, if it's successful, select one enemy unit within 30 inches and visible to the Infernal Master. If it has a unit of 6 or more, it suffers 1 mortal wound, and you -2 from the advance and charge rolls are made from that unit. Again, stacking that with the psychic power from one of the cults where you choose a unit that's near a terrain feature and you half move. Now it's half move -1 charge in advance. You're making it -3. You basically got a unit that can't move. You got Fires of the Abyss, which is if this pact is successful, the closest enemy unit within 15 inches and visible to the Infernal Master suffers D3 mortal wounds. You've then got Capering Imps. If this pact is successful, select one enemy unit within 24 inches of and visible to the Master. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit cannot receive the benefits of cover, cannot fire Overwatch, and cannot set to defend, which is actually a pretty good one, I think. You've got Diabolical Savant, which is if it's successful, at the start of your next psychic phase, if your army is Cabal of Sorcerers, you generate additional Cabal point. And in your next psychic phase, you can reroll the psychic test for this for Infernal Master. So you can only cast once, having reroll, and that's pretty good. You've got Glimpse of Eternity. If this pact is successful, until the start of your next command phase, you can reroll 1 dice you have rolled. You cannot reroll any mission dice. And then the final one, you have Malefic Maelstrom. If this pact is successful, select one friendly Thousand Sun unit within 24 inches and visible to the Infernal Master. Till the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, add 1 to the strength characteristic. So pack that on a big fat unit of rubrics or some Scarab cults and you are laughing. Actually laughing. You've then got a whole bunch of relics. Now, a lot of these have similar names, a lot of them have changed and some of them will sound familiar. Dark Matter Crystal has gone, but it has a new name and arguably a better ability. So it's kind of not really gone. I lied. It was clickbait. We've got Seer's Bane, which is a 4 sword. It's +2 strength, -4 AP and D3 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon against a Psyche unit, it's ×2 strength. And it has a damage characteristic of D6 against Psychers. So anti-Psyker stabber. You then have the Umbralific Crystal, which is the Dark Matter Crystal. Now it's basically the same, however it's not done at the end of the movement phase, it's done at the end of the command phase. Once a battle in your command phase, you can select the bearer or one friendly Thousands infantry unit within 6 inches of the bearer and remove it from the battlefield. In the reinforcement step of that turn's movement phase, set that up unit anywhere on the battlefield is more than 9 inches away from any models. I thought it reset up at the same time, but it does not. So it's at the end of the movement phase, so it's alright. You just have to select it during the command phase. But it is the unit or the bearer, not both anymore. So it's not better. It was clickbait. I lied. I'm sorry. Helm of the Demon's Eye is each time your opponent uses a stratagem, on a 5+ you gain 1. You've got the Coruscator, which is an Infernal Bolt Pistol, which is a pistol 3 at 18 inch, strength 5, -2 and 2 damage. You got Athenaean Scrolls, which is Exalted Sorcerer only. Once a battle in your Psychic phase, when the bearer selects to manifest Psychic powers, it can reach from the scrolls. If it does, select one Psychic power the bearer knows from the Discipline of Change or Vengeance, which is the 2 tables in this book. For the rest of the battle, each time it attempts to manifest that Psychic power, roll 1 additional D6 and discard 1 D6 when that's power's Psychic test, which is really good. Really good. Makes some of the powers like almost auto cast. Bar denies, you know. You've got the Thridagiri, which is a disc of Zinch. You can manifest Psychic powers even if you fell back and declare a charge in the turn which you advanced. And each time it makes a consolidation move, it can move up to 6 inches and does not have to move to the closest, nearest enemy model. So you get to move 6 inches any direction when you consolidate. You got the Igligans Ireri. Oh my god, we just make up silly names. At the start of each of your command phase, you can select one enemy unit that is visible to the bearer. If you do, and then until the end of the turn, when the bearer has a following ability. Fated Doom Aura, while a core unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, each time modeling that unit makes an attack against the enemy unit you just selected, you can ignore any or all weapon skill modifiers, ballistic skill modifiers, hit roll modifiers, wound roll modifiers, and abilities that reduce the attack damage characteristic. That is a really good relic. Really, really good. Ignore all the cool things that they get. I just want to shoot you, and we're playing normal Warhammer where I roll my dice and you don't get to play with them. You've got the Kronos Tutorum, which is a model with a Warlord trait only. Once a battle in your command phase, you can give this model one additional Warlord trait. You must select the Warlord trait that the bearer could have, and each Warlord trait in your army must be unique, which is kind of nice. You can basically just give it any extra Warlord trait you like. So it's kind of nice that you can do that at any point, and you can tailor it depending on what you're playing against. Then you've got the Scalox Talon, which is a 4-stave at strength ×2, 0 AP, but 2d3 damage. You got the Conniving Plate, which is a Astartes only. It gives you a 2-up save, and basically you can only allocate half the amount of attacks to it with any enemy models. So if they got 2 attacks, they can only put 1 attack into it. You got the Warp Weave Mantle, which is each time the bearer is selected to target as a charge, an unmodified charge roll of a 9+ always fails. And each time a psychic test is made for the bearer, if it has lost any wounds, add 1 to that psychic test. Another really, really great relic. Really great. You got the Paradoxical Chatterfowl, which is infantry only. At the start of the fight phase, select one enemy model within 3 inches of the bearer and roll 1d3. Until the start of the next fight phase, reduce that model's weapon skill and ballistic skill by that result, and subtract the result from the psychic test made for that model. You got the Change Wrought Chalice, which is a Zangor Shaman. It can know extra power from Change or Vengeance. You got Incandeum, which is a 4-stave. It replaces the 4-stave and has a polygon profile. It has a range 12, assault d6, strength 5, -2, 1 damage shooting attack, and it has a +3 strength, -1 damage, -1 AP, and d3 damage, and it's auto hitting. Basically, it's got an auto flamer in there. You got the Pentakyric Armor, which is for the Infernal Master only. It knows 1 additional pact, and he basically reduces all the first saving throw failed, reduces the damage to 0 once per turn. You got Prism of Echoes, which is each time the bearer successfully manifests a blessing psychic power, double the range of that power's effects. And then the Stave Abominus, which is a 4-stave, it's +3 strength, -1, and 1 damage, but you make 2 hit rolls instead of 1. So then we go on to psychic powers. So as I said, there's 9 powers in each table, which is pretty cool. There's a Disciple of Change, There's a Discipline of Change and a Discipline of Vengeance. So Discipline of Change is very familiar. Discipline of Vengeance is kind of like the Heretic Astartes powers. Very similar, but not quite the same. So we got number 11, Tzeentch's Firestorm, which is Warp Chart value 6. Choose one enemy unit with 18 and visible to the Psyker, and roll 9d6. For each roll of a 6, that unit takes 1 more wound. If it's rolled on an unmodified 9+, that enemy suffers 1 more wound for each roll of a 5. Number 12 is Glamour of Tzeentch. So it's a Blessing in Warp Charge 6. Choose a friendly Thousand Suns unit within 18 inches and subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll when targeting that unit. Doombolt is now Warp Charge 6, but it just does 3 mortal wounds within 18 inches to the nearest enemy unit. Number 21 is Temporal Manipulation, which has Warp Charge value of 5. You choose a unit within 12 inches and 1 model of that unit regains D3 wounds, but not vehicles. Number 22 is Weaver of Fates. It has a Warp Charge value of 7. You choose a Thousand Suns unit within 18 inches of this Psyker. Until the start of the next psychic phase, that unit has a 4+ invulnerable save. So sadly, no 3+ invuln Magnus anymore. It just gives out a 4+ invuln. So good for on your Scarab Cult and stuff, but not your characters. There's number 23, Baleful Devolution, or Devolution. Warp Charge value 8. Choose an enemy unit within 18 inches and visible that has 6 or more models. Roll a number of d6 equal to the result of the psychic test. For each roll of a 6, that enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. There's Cacodemonic Curse, which is Warp Charge value 6. Select an enemy unit within 18 inches. Until the start of your next psychic phase, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of ranged weapons. Ranged weapons models in that unit are equipped with. That's a really good power. Really, really strong. Pyric Flux, which is Warp Charge value of 5. Select 1 Arcana Astartes unit within 12 inches of the Psyker. Till the end of the turn, add 1 to the strength characteristics of all Warp Flamers, Warp Flame Pistols, and Heavy Warp Flamers that unit is equipped with. Again, that with the Infernal Masters Pact, number 6, you can get your Warp Flamers up to strength 6, which is pretty cool. Or your Heavy Flamers up to strength 7. Then you got Perplex, which is a malediction at Warp Charge 7, choosing it within 24 inches, an enemy unit. Until the start of your next psychic phase, each time that unit is selected to shoot, units more than 24 inches away cannot be selected as a target of range attacks. We've then got Discipline of Vengeance. This is the second table. We've got Gaze of Hate, which is Watch Out value 5, choosing an enemy unit within 18 inches. Roll 3d6 on each of 4 plus it suffers a mortal wound. We've got Twist of Fate, which is basically Death Hex. It's Warp Charge 8, enemy unit within 12 inches. Until the start of your next psychic phase, models in that unit cannot use invuns. We got Dark Blessing, Warp Charge value 6. Select one enemy unit within 6 inches and visible to the psychic and roll 1d6. If the result is greater than the target's toughness, that unit suffers d3 plus 3 mortal wounds. We got Presage, which is the Blessing of Watch Charge 7. If manifested, select one friendly 1000 Sun unit within 18 inches of the psychic. You add 1 to the hit rolls. Swelled by the Warp is Watch Charge value 6. If manifested, select one friendly 1000 Suns model within 12 inches of this psychic until the start of the next psychic phase, plus 2 to that model's strength characteristic and 1 to the attacks. We've got Temporal Surge, which is Warp Charge value 7. If manifested, it's basically warp time. Select an infantry, cavalry, or beast unit within 6 inches. That model can then make a normal move. Empiric Guidance is Warp Charge value 4. Select one friendly 1000 Sun unit within 12 inches until the start of your next psychic phase, plus 6 inch range to rapid fire and heavy weapons that unit are equipped with. We've got Psychic Stalk, which is Warp Charge 5. If manifested, select one enemy unit that is not a vehicle or monster or character within 18 inches and visible. Roll 2d6 if the result is greater than unmodified leadership of that characteristic. One model in that unit is slain. And then we've got Desecration of Worlds, which is a malediction of Warp Charge 7. Select one enemy unit within 24 inches and visible to the psychic. To start your next psychic phase, each time that model makes a normal move, advance, fallback, a charge move, roll 1d6 for each model in that unit. For each result of a 6, that unit takes 1 mortal wound. Then we skip 10 pages before the Crusade rules and go to the bit that's more interesting. We've got the data sheets and the Cabilistic Rituals rules. So it goes on to explain basically great cult keywords. Each detachment can only be one part of one great cult. Iron Man doesn't have any words, so he's fine to jump in anyway. There's malicious volleys, so basically bolters can rapid fire if they stand still, and terminators get it at full range, so they always rapid fire. The teleport strike, which is deep strike, and then sorcerer's master, which is basically when you've got a unit that has an aspiring sorcerer in, he's the caster, the unit isn't the caster. So you basically measure all ranges to him, etc. So it says, each time this unit would attempt to perform a psychic action, each time it would deny the witch, measure distances, draw a line of sight from this unit's aspiring sorcerer or scribe occult terminator. If the enemy units have any abilities that require measuring distance and drawing light to psychic units, do so to the aspiring sorcerer or sorcerer. So basically, it's a psychic unit, but it's the sorcerer who's doing the psychic shenanigans. There's no hateful assault, but it looks like all 1000 Suns have gained an attack anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So then there is Cabilistic Rituals. So if every unit in your army is a 1000 Suns keyword, except for unaligned, your army becomes a cabal of sorcerers. At the start of each psychic phase, if your army is a cabal of sorcerers, generate cabal points for your army for each model with this ability. So basically, you look at all the models you have on the board, you add them up, and then you gain a resource that you can use in the psychic phase. They must all be spent in the psychic phase, or they are then lost. So you got Magnus the Red, who gives you 4 cabal points. Iron Man, Exalted Sorcerers, and the 1000 Suns Demon Princes give you 3 points each. Each Sorcerer, Sorcerer Intimidator Armor, or Infernal Masters give you 2 each. And then Scarab Occult Terminators, Scarab Occult Sorcerers, Aspiring Sorcerers, and Zangor Shamans give you 1. You can only use each ritual once, and each unit can only benefit from one once per phase. And you can only use it during the psychic phase. Magnus, when he's your warlord, he has to be your warlord, he can use 2. So you got Imbued Manifestation for 4 cabal points. Use it when your psychic power is successfully manifested by a unit. You can plus 6 inch ranges to that psychic power. And it's only the first range, so like stuff like Astral Blast, it's only the first range. It actually specifies Astral Blast, saying it only adds 6 inch to the first range specified in that psychic power. You've then got Malevolent Charge for 4 cabal points. Use it after you successfully manifest a psychic power. If the psychic power inflicts mortal wounds on enemy units, after inflicting the mortal wounds, select one of those units and inflict D3 additional mortal wounds on that unit. You've got Kindred Sorcerers for 5 Cabal points. Use this after taking a psychic test for a unit in your army, +1 to that psychic test. You got Warp Sight for just 3. Essentially, when it says you need line of sight, you can draw line of sight from any Psyker unit you have, which is really cool. It says when successfully manifested a power by a unit in your army, if the psychic power requires you to select a unit visible to the Psyker for that manifestation, you can select a unit visible to any friendly units with the Cabilistic Rituals ability, which is all of the sorcerer ability, all the sorcerer units, sorry. So basically cultists and cultists and Zangor don't have it, and the vehicles don't have it, but basically any other unit does. You got Echoes from the Warp for 4 Cabal points. Use this in the Psychic phase, select one Psychic unit from your army. Till the end of the phase, that unit can perform it. Following Psychic action is Warp Charge 3. You gain a command point. You got Pact from Beyond for 7 Cabal points, so quite high. Use this Cabilistic Ritual when attempting to manifest a Psychic power. Do not make a Psychic test. That Psychic test is passed at the minimum required Warp Charge value, which is kind of nice for when you really need a power later on and there's no more denies, you just automatically cast it. You got Cabalistic Focus for 8. Use this after a psychic test is made for your army and passed. That psychic power cannot be denied, which is nice. You've got Psychic Maelstrom for 8 Cabal points. Use this Cabalistic Ritual when a unit from your army is selected to manifest a psychic power. To the end of the phase, that unit can attempt to manifest one Witchfire psychic power that another psychic unit in your army has already attempted to manifest during the phase, even though the same psychic power cannot normally be attempted more than once. So that's pretty cool. And it can only cast it, he can cast it as well, even if he doesn't know that power. He can just cast another spell, another Witchfire that you've already cast. So you could like do 2 Doom Bolts, which would be cool. That'd be quite nice. So, you know, it's like 6 more wounds out there, but it's 8 Cabal points. And then you got Wrath of the Immaterium, which is 9 Cabal points. Use this after taking a psychic test. You can add 2 to the psychic test. So again, Stars & Sons already get +1 naturally. Magnus gets +2 while he's on full wounds. If you wanted to spend 9 points, you can get Magnus to +5 to cast, which is kind of hilarious. I know I keep talking about Magnus getting +2 to cast, but it's Stars & Sons. Who else are you going to talk about? And then we got datasheet changes. So I'm going to go through each datasheet and basically like give you like a rough idea of what I've noticed that's changed. There's quite a lot of like minute changes, but overall they're pretty good, healthy changes. And some of them are a little bit of nerfs, you know. So Ahriman, he can re-roll psychic tests because of Arch Sorcerer Zinch. He has a 4+ invuln. And he knows 3 powers from either discipline. Thousand Sons Demon Princes are pretty much the same as the Death Guard ones now, but he has a 4+ invulnerable save. And he affects great cult core units and get Liggers and rerolls to hit. But he can manifest 2 psychic powers because he's Thousand Sons, compared to 1 as normal. The Infernal Master is basically a sorcerer. He's weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, toughness 4, strength 4, 4 wounds, 4 attacks, 3 up save. He's got 4 stave. He can attempt to deny and cast 1 psychic power, but he can also attempt to do 1 pact, but he knows 2. So it's basically like a chaplain. So he knows 2 pacts. He can attempt 1 a turn, and it goes off on a 3+. We've then got a sorcerer, but they have a thrall ability for each exalted sorcerer, including the detachment. You can take a sorcerer in that detachment without taking a battlefield roll, which is kind of nice. Then you got exalted sorcerers. They're pretty much the same. 4+ invuln. Reroll hit rolls of 1 for core units within 6. Can do 2 powers. Knows 2 powers. They've pretty much remained the same, I believe. I can't really spot any changes, to be honest. Except for the swords that maybe changed. It's now it's +1 strength, -3 and 2 damage, which is kind of nice, but it doesn't get like +1 attack like it used to. I think you used to get something for taking 2, I'm sure. I just can't remember. I'm sure someone in chat will know. We've then got a sorcerer in Terminator armor, so they can no longer take the little familiar. That was the biggest change I've noticed. But he does have thrall as well, so you can take him along with an Exalted Sorcerer for no extra detachment points. He can manifest 2, and he can deny 1. And then you got Thousand Suns Cultists, so these aren't core, as we probably expected. The units 1 to 30. And then we've got Zangors as well, also not core, but they are Bray. And they can be taken between 1 to 20. Chainswords are no AP, but additional attack. Zangor Blades are -1 AP. And gives you an extra attack. The Bray Horn in the unit gives you +1 to advance and charge rolls, and the Head Banner lets you reroll morale. Otherwise, weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, toughness 4, 1 wound. You know, nothing crazy. You've then got Rubric Marines. So these have finally got 2 wounds, which is excellent. They have retained all these dusts, so each time you allocate a damage characteristic, whatever weapon is 1, they get +1 save. They also automatically pass morale, which I believe is new. So they have Malicious Volleys, which is the bolter thing, Cabilistic Rituals, which is the Cabal points thing, and they have Sorcerer's Master, which is basically the Inspiring Sorcerer, is the Psyker in the unit. Soul Reaper Cannons are now heavy 5, strength 6, -3 and 1 damage, which is very good. It's an extra shot, it's an extra strength. The Icon of Flame, now basically, if your army is a Cabal of Sorcerer and the bearer is on the battlefield, you generate an additional Cabal point, rather than that random mortal wound that you're doing. So if you chuck a few of those around, it's kind of nice. 1 Rubric Marine in the squad can replace its Inferno Bolt Gun with a Soul Reaper Cannon, and 1 Rubric can take an Icon of Flame. So essentially, you don't need to take units of 10 for the special weapon anymore. You can just put in units of 5, and that's probably going to be really beneficial for more Cabal points and being able to do more powers. You got a Hellbrute. They pretty much got the Dreadnought update, -1 damage. If it has taken a wound, it now just reroll wounds of 1 for Frenzy, which is nice. You got Scarabacle, essentially the same as Rubrics, the updates they've got. The new Soul Reaper Cannon, also the Kopesh, the Prospering Kopesh, which is basically the power swords, are now 2 damage and +1 strength, so they're strength 5, -3 and 2 damage in combat. And then they've got the Inferno Combi Bolters, which are the same. Got the Soul Reaper Cannon at 5 shots. All these dusts are +1 save. Invuln, automatically pass morale, and they can cast a Power of Return. Zangor Shamans, they basically give +1 to hit to Bray or Enlightened units, and they're pretty much the same. They can cast a power, they know Smite, and 1 from the Discipline of Change. You got Zangor Enlightened. These aren't Bray units, so I might have been mistaken earlier, but they're pretty much the same. The Fate Caster Great Bow ignores Lookout Sir and always hits on a 2, even though the ballistic skill 3 is 1 shot, a strength 5, -1 and 1 damage. And then a hit roll of a 6 automatically wounds a target. Nothing you've not seen before. I feel like they're pretty much the same. As well as Chaos Spawns, which are in there as well, where they're pretty much the same. And Chaos Rhinos as well, all pretty standard stuff. You got the Mutilate Vortex Beast now. These pretty much didn't see play. They might get a few bit hits of play here. It's move 10, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 4, strength 7, toughness 7, 14 wounds, 5 attacks with a 4-up save. And you can do 2 Vortex powers on full wound. It has the Betentacled Maw, which is make 3 hit rolls instead of 1 for strength 7, -1 and 1 damage, so 15 attacks. Or you can use a Mutilate Claws, which is strength 8, -2 and 3 damage. It has a 3+ invuln. My apologies. It has a 5+ invulnerable save, not 3+. In your command phase, it heals D3 wounds. It explodes on a 4+. And then you got Warp Vortex. In your shooting phase, you can use a number of Vortex powers, so 2 on full wounds, as specified. Each time this model does so, select one of the powers below that has not been used by a friendly model during this turn and resolve its effect. So it has Immaterial Flare. Select one enemy unit within 18 inches and visible to this model. Then roll 1d6 for each model in that unit. On a 6, it takes a mortal wound. You got Turbulent Discharge. Determining the closest enemy unit within 18 and visible to the model. Then roll 1d6. On a 2 to 4, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 5, it suffers 3 mortal wounds. You got Maelstrom of Madness, which is roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 9 inches. On a 2+, it suffers 1 mortal wound. And then you got the Beam of Unreality. So that's an enemy unit with a wound characteristic of 10 or more within 24 inches and visible. Then roll 1d6, subtracting 1 if it is an aircraft keyword, and adding 1 if it is a Titanic. On a 3 to 4, it takes D3 mortal wounds. On a 5, it takes D6. So that feels like a nice little update. They're alright. They do a few extra mortal wounds here and there, which is kind of nice. I'm not seeing them being auto take, but they are only are. They aren't that many points, I don't think. 145, so not the greatest thing in there, but it's alright. You've then got a Chaos Vindicator. Yep. You got a Land Raider. Yep. You got a Defiler, Fortree, and Demolithine. That's cool. You got a Predator Destructor and Predator Annihilator. Cool. Helldrake. Wow. You got Magnus the Red. So Magnus the Red, his profile is pretty much the same. 16-inch move with Fly, 2/2, Strength 8, Toughness 7, 18 wounds, 3-up save. He's got the Blade of Magnus, which makes him Strength 16, -4 and 3 damage, with 8 attacks. Each time the bearer has fought, select one enemy model that has lost any wounds as a result of this attack but was not destroyed. It then suffers D3 mortal wounds. So Magnus the Red profile is pretty much the same. He's had a few changes. He now doesn't let you reroll ones in the psychic phase, which is a little bit of a nerf. But he is -1 damage just because of his Warlord trait. He's got Cabilistic Rituals. He's a Demon Primarch, so he has to be the Warlord unless you've got more than one with this rule. He's Primarch, so he gives all Thousand Suns core units within 6 inches rerolling hits. He's got Lord of the Planet of the Sorcerers, so basically Chapter Master, choose a core or character unit within 6 inches, and you can reroll all hits with that unit. So he can select himself as well, which is nice. But obviously, you know, was giving out full rerolls to one unit, like a Chapter Master would. He's then got Crown of the Crimson King. This model has a 4+ invulnerable save. In addition, this model never suffers Perils of the Warp, so you can never suffer from that. But you can never get him better than a 4+, sadly. Gaze of Magnus is now changed. When he does Smite, he does D6 mortal wounds instead of D3. Or 3D3 mortal wounds instead of D6 if the tester was 11 or more. So this used to be 2D6, so now you have a lower ceiling but a better average, because the minimum you can roll is 3 on 3D3, but the average is 6. Whereas the average used to be 7, but the minimum was 2. And the max was 12. So a nice little change. I feel like that's on average probably going to do more, but I'm sure someone can work that out in the maths. And then he's got Unearthly Power. You can reroll psychic tests taken for this model, just straight up. And each time a psychic test or deny the witch test is taken, you add 1. If this has more than 10 wounds, you add 2. So naturally adds 2 while he's on full wounds. He always adds 1. Because he's Thousand Suns, he always adds 1 as well. So he's minimum +2, +3 while he's got more than 10 wounds, which is really cool, I think. Really, really strong. He can do 3 powers a turn and deny 3. You know, Smite, and then 3 powers from Disciplinary Change or Disciplinary Vengeance. You're going to make him your Warlord in the Thousand Suns army. So he knows every power. He knows 19 powers, but he can cast 3 a turn. With +3. So he's pretty good. His attacks degrade. He goes from 8 to 7 to 6. And his movement goes from 16, 14, 12. But they're the only 2 profiles that degrade. So with that -1 damage as well, and still being able to cast -1 to hit to it on him, I think losing the 3-up in one is a shame. But it's still pretty solid, to be honest. And then you got the points. I'm pretty sure the points in chapter approved are correct. At the time of filming, because they were kind of came out early. You got the Infernal Master at 90 points, Magnus is 450. You've got all the Legion Command, which we've gone through earlier, and I believe that is pretty much it. I mean, the main ones are Rubrics at 21, Scarabs of 40 points, but they can take obviously all the same stuff, and they've gained a wound. Let's double check. I'm pretty sure they did. I'd be daft if they didn't. Yeah, they gained a wound as well with 3 attacks base. So pretty much everything got like +1 attack, and all the rubrics and Scarab got +1 wound as well. Overall, I think Thousand Suns were probably like just falling behind Death Guard because of the fact that they only have 1 wound compared to Death Guard having 2, and all the extra little updates. There's a lot of tricks in this book, and I feel like whilst they gained, I feel like they've gained quite a lot with shooting. And they've got lots of tricks where they can fall out of combat. All the weapons are a lot better, like the power sword being 2 damage. They're actually a little bit better in combat, but they've gained so much in the psychic phase where they've got so many tricks and pretty much automatically casting everything, or getting so many buffs to casting that people aren't going to be able to deny. I think that's actually really strong. I think that's like they're in like a really good position, and being able to utilize the psychic phase properly will pump them right up to being really competitive and really strong. Because some other some other armies in the meta right now can't really deal with the psychic phase, and then when these guys come out, you trying to use stuff in the psychic phase is gonna like really like fall behind, because they're gonna be able to stop you doing it. So these guys are just gonna own the psychic phase, much like they should do, because they're a psychic army. Do I think they're better than Admech? I don't know. I think they're still kind of expensive. You're not going to have many units on the board. Magnus, if you do take him, is a big target. But I think overall it's a really strong update, which will put them right up to the rest of 9th edition codexes, probably above normal Space Marines, above Necrons, probably in line with Death Guard, which are like hit and miss. They're quite strong, but you know, some older armies can't really deal with them. Newer armies can deal with them quite well. So I feel like they might struggle into Drakari, they might struggle into Admech, but you're going to have so much mortal wound output, then you're going to kind of own them in the psychic phase. And if you can do that enough, then you can win games. I think they're really cool. I really like the idea of running the cult where everyone gets a deep strike for like Watchad 5 or whatever it was with +1. I think that's really cool because 1,000 Suns are quite slow. But overall, I'm really excited about this book. So I'm hopefully going to be playing it with Magnus, who's up there. There he is. See him. I'm going to play in this book against Grey Knights very soon, as a live battle report, I believe, which should be really fun. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And that's it. I'm going to go sleep because tomorrow, at the time of filming, I'm going to go and set up a tournament. So I'll be live again at 10 AM on Sunday for live coffee time, kind of, from a tournament and showing you guys what's going on there. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of 1,000 Suns. Are you excited about them? Do you play them already and really excited about the buffs? Are you getting into them because of this video, or I just sat and read a book till you? I don't know. Let me know. Really appreciate it. Love you all, and bye-bye for now. Bye.